So when you were in medical school and you were learning how to be a practitioner for the body, I read that you also were involved in an experimental trial using psychedelics. I'm curious, in what way did that perhaps shape your worldview?
So I was in medical school at a very young age, 17 years, which is kind of premature for medical school, through a series of circumstances. And this was the era of the whole revolution, Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, all the experiments going on in Harvard. I was in a medical school in India, which was supported by foreign countries. It was one of the newer medical schools after the British left India. Mm-hmm. So it was styled after American medical schools, although funded by many foundations, including the Rockefeller Foundation, some foundations from New Zealand, etc. And this is exactly the time when all this stuff was happening at Harvard. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was teaching transcendental meditation. The Beatles were in Rishikesh. So you can imagine the scene, right? So we had about a few exchange students from Harvard at my medical school, which in India, styled after American medical schools, called the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And so we had some students, exchange students and exchange professors. And yeah, we did a little bit of experimental protocols on, at that time, LSD. So I had an LSD experience under a controlled environment. And we were looking at a poster of Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa at that time had a reputation, so-called, that if she licked the wounds of children with leprosy, they would be healed. Now, it sounds very outlandish, but since then there are many kinds of studies what happens when you have that experience of intense compassion and empathy. Mm. So we were looking at this poster of Mother Teresa with little children. She wasn't actually licking their wounds, but she was blessing them. And I had the most intense experience of looking back of empathy, deep compassion, to the point that I was sobbing. I knew that healing lied in a physician or a healer who had to have compassion. This is long before the science came out. Even now people don't understand the science. Mm-hmm. When a healer and a healer are together, the three things happen. If you have intense empathy, your limbic brain, your emotional brain, and the emotional brain of the patient starts to resonate, and that's called limbic resonance. If the healer so that's with empathy. If then compassion emerges, which is the desire to alleviate the suffering, then there's something called limbic regulation. You actually start to regulate another person's brain just through the interaction of this deep emotional connection. And that leads to something called limbic revision, which means you actually change the neural networks of the person who's suffering. Now, we've always heard love is the greatest healer, right? Metaphorically speaking. But what I'm saying is there's a biological basis for empathy, compassion, kindness, love in action, joy, and this deep soul communion that happens that we call unity consciousness or love. Mm-hmm. I experienced that. At the age of 17. Now, it was very, very intense, and it was not even something that I didn't afterwards even have the desire to do it again, right? Because I had snapped into that experience.
Yeah. I think Alan Watts said that once you get the message, hang up.
Yeah, once you get the message, hang up.
And also Bill Richards, does all the research at Johns Hopkins, had a beautiful metaphor that it's like you're on a journey and you're at base camp about to climb a mountain, but you get this helicopter ride to see the top of the mountain. And then you have to come back to base camp. So the next day you got to do the work. You have to do the trek up that mountain. So in a way, these psychedelic experiences, do you think they give you like a sense of inspiration or a vision, but then you have to integrate after that?
Yeah, you have to be psychologically stable, I think, to have a psychedelic experience of that kind of intensity, because otherwise there can be what we call dissociation, and there's no integration with our everyday experience. But yes, I think the key message here is that what the psychedelics do is open up a domain of awareness that is usually overshadowed by our conditioned mind.
Mm-hmm. Which actually goes to the biggest question of all. What is reality, right?
Well, if you go Google right now, what are the 125 open questions in science? And anyone can Google this. What are the unanswered questions in science? There are over 125 of these, including what's at the center of the Earth and how many galaxies there are. But the number one open question in science is, what is the universe made of? Which is, we are asking, what is reality, right? So why is that an open question?